Hey, welcome, Susie. Oh, welcome to Emma too. Hey, ladies, how you doing? I'm just getting things kind of rolling, and we'll jump into this in a little bit. I told the owner, Marie Madson, out of Iola, Wisconsin, we would start right around 7. We'll probably start a little bit before that, but I just wanted to get it rolling and make people aware we're going to do this live stream on this super cool 301. And if y'all can let me know if you can hear the music and hear me at the same time. In other words, if you can hear the music with my voice, just to make sure the camera's working properly. Yeah. Yeah, Emma, if you don't know it, is down from around Naples, Florida, and I think it's pretty common news now that Florida got whacked by that horrible hurricane, right? And so a lot of our vintage sewing machine family was impacted by that storm down in Florida that eventually moved out towards the East Coast. So Emma was not able to get back to her place. The roads are blocked. There's no gas stations open. It's just a mess down there. And was finally able to get back to her place, and everything, all in all, is in really good shape. So she was really fortunate. Other folks lost everything in that hurricane, and she's one of the fortunate ones that very minimal damage to her property, which is great news for Emma. Oh, also welcome to Renee, my dear friend that's local to Oconto, Wisconsin. And we all have our own battles in life, don't we? We're all battling dragons at one time or another. And recently, Renee has been battling the dragon of Spectrum. We've had some basic conversations about her trying to get her Spectrum to work. And finally today, drum roll, a senior technician for Spectrum made it out to her place. And hopefully the news is good. She can share an update on how her Spectrum is finally doing. But doesn't it annoy the heck out of you when you're paying a fair price for a service and the other side is not delivering what they're supposed to be delivering? Ugh! Oh, man. Makes me want to ring the bell or wring their necks, one of the two. Well, that's great. It sounds like Spectrum has finally gotten the job done. Finally. Ah. All right, I'm going to ring the bell just to officially get us started. But again, we're going to be kind of slow because I told the owner 7 o'clock, and I don't want to start too early. And then she kind of jumps into it on a premiere that's about her machine, and we're already rolling with it. So yeah, we'll start in just a little bit. Y'all visit, get acquainted with each other, and then we'll jump into this great machine. I keep walking around with the bell. It's like ding, 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 ding. Yeah, I don't know if anybody else in the country uses Spectrum. I know they're nationwide. I don't use Spectrum. Uh, I actually use T-Mobile 5G network. It's a home network service. You don't get any of the fancy channels like you do on Spectrum. All you do is get internet, but it's really fast. If any of you have 5G phones, you know what I'm talking about. It's just a totally different level of running on the internet. It's such a, gosh, it's so much fun. And I use it for Netflix. I use it for streaming like this. So, yeah, if you don't need all the fancy channels and all you're looking for is real fast internet, check with T-Mobile to see if they're in your neck of the woods. Uh, they deliver really fast speeds with their home internet, and it's $50 a month, which is pretty doggone good for streaming at that speed. Yeah. So this machine, I'll tell you a little bit about this machine while we're kind of ramping up here. Oh, Susie has to take her dog out. I wonder what kind of dog she has. When she gets back, somebody ask her what kind of dog she has, because I don't know. But Susie's over in Minnesota, if you didn't know that. Yeah. So a little bit about this machine. I'll kind of show you the front of it too while we're getting ready to start. So this is known as the Singer 301, which was first introduced in 1952. If you're looking at this machine and you're going, boy, is that gorgeous? Isn't that a sexy looking sewing machine? You're absolutely right. And it didn't look like this, obviously, when I first started this project. Uh, the owner, Marie Madson, out of Iola, Wisconsin, contacted me last year and said, I'm really dreaming of getting the big sister to the Featherweight. Well, that told me right away that she's a follower of mine, because I was the first in the world to name this machine the big sister to the Featherweight. And it's because when it was rolled out in 1952, it was an answer to a lot of petitions from featherweight owners out there. Featherweight owners love their featherweights. And if you don't know anything about the featherweight, it was first introduced right around 1933 at the Chicago World's Fair. Back in the day, the World's Fairs were the way that a lot of people made their name, because millions of people would come to those fairs and they could show off their whatever they had. It didn't have to be a sewing machine, it could have been anything. And the World's Fair that ran from 1933 to 1934 was affectionately coined a century of progress. And so the entire theme of the World's Fair in 1933 to 1934 was talking about technology advances and talking about new products out there, things that were just pizzazzing the potential consumers. And so when they introduced the featherweight, which I call the princess of singers, because it's so tiny and it's so light, they had the most beautiful women of the day parading around their display at the World's Fair in Chicago, holding the featherweight with one hand, almost like you might see a server at a restaurant holding a tray of food as they're coming to your table, and you're licking your chops because you haven't eaten all day and you're really hungry. Well, they wanted to whet the appetite of the people at the World's Fair that loved sewing already about this new little princess of singers, the featherweight. And it really was a marriage made in heaven. They right away, people just fell in love with this featherweight. It only weighed 11 pounds, and it was able to do a wide range of different sewing projects, and it was so compact. But after a while, the honeymoon kind of wore off, and people were like, "We love our featherweights, but we would love to have a machine that had even more workspace, had even a larger harp opening for our bigger, bulkier projects. And wouldn't it be lovely to have more power?" Even the ladies back in the 1940s and 50s were about something that's beautiful, but also they wanted power. So Singer, being a wise producer of sewing machines, listened to their feedback and came out with this beautiful 301 at their Elizabethport, New Jersey plant at night in 1952. So the original featherweight, and I can actually kind of point over at the other workbench real quick. You can catch a glimpse of this featherweight that's going through the final steps of finalization right now. That's as close as I can get. That's as far as my cord for the camera reaches. But this particular featherweight is being prepared for a dear gal out of the great state of Missouri. And she's really excited about it. If you watch the posts that'll go up later today or early tomorrow on this machine, you're going to see her jumping all over it. And I'm not even going to mention her name right now to kind of leave you in suspense. But if you look at the featherweight, I'm actually going to go over and grab her featherweight. Hold on a second. I'll put on some more music while I'm going over and grabbing that featherweight. Let me set the camera down so I don't drop it. Okay, Susie from Minnesota. It looks like she's back. So you guys need to ask her what kind of dog she has. Yeah, you should. I'm curious. I'm going to line these up so you can see the difference in size. So there you can see a standard featherweight. It's not fully assembled yet. I just got done doing the final calibration and polishing and cleaning of the upper tension. So I just mounted that back on, but there's a lot more things to go on the machine yet. So there you've got the princess of singers in the foreground, and behind the princess, you've got the big sister of the featherweight right behind. You can see the difference straight away as far as the overall size and workspace of these two machines. Now, type in the chat if you want to venture a guess. You guys are really, really smart. I say it all the time. So you're really, really smart, but I want you to guess. If you look at this little featherweight, again, that these beautiful ladies back in the 1930s, 33 to 34, at the Chicago World's Fair were parading around, and they were holding this featherweight with the palm of their hand, kind of like this. I'll kind of show myself here. So they're holding it like this, just on the palm of their hand, and they're walking around with this little princess of singers that only weighs 11 pounds. Now, I should also point out that Thalia's featherweight that I prepared for her is also a centennial model. That's kind of fun, isn't it? But how much heavier do you think this 301 is behind that we're going to be sewing off on today? How much heavier is this machine than this little princess of singers? How much heavier? This one we know weighs 11 pounds. It weighs less than 11 pounds right now because it has no motor mounted to it yet, and it's missing the faceplate. It's missing a number of other things because I haven't put it back together yet. If you didn't know it, when I prepare a machine, this 301 and this featherweight, I tear it all the way down. Even if it's not going to the paint shop, everything comes off. Everything is thoroughly inspected, serviced, adjusted, blah, 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 blah. So when it's fully assembled, this featherweight will weigh 11 pounds. How much do you think this 301 weighs? I mean, it's a lot bigger, isn't it? It's also got a vertically mounted direct drive motor in it as well, if you didn't know that. There's no belt on the 301. There's no belt. And so when you look at these machines, you're going to assume that this 301 that is is going to be featured today to honor our owner, Marie Madson, out of Iola, Wisconsin. It's got to be a lot heavier, right? It's got to be a lot heavier, this 301, right? Yeah, of course it is. Why not? Ooh, a Labrador. I love labs, don't you? Yeah, they're awesome. So Susie out of Minnesota has a 12-year-old Labrador, it sounds like. Fabulous. So somebody be courageous. Come on, you guys. Be courageous. Step into the live chat and type what you think this 301 weighs in at. It's obviously going to be heavier than the featherweight, right? It's going to be heavier. But how much do you think it weighs? Again, it's got a much bigger motor, a tower style motor that allows you to sew with this 301 without any belt. Direct drive. It's just amazing. Amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Aren't they beautiful machines? Aren't you envious? And I'm behind the shadows right now. This is top secret. All right? Top secret. Hush, hush, don't tell anybody. Behind the scenes right now, I am preparing the queen of singers. Does anyone know this is the princess of singers? This is the big sister of the featherweight. What is the queen of singers that I'm going to be offering for sale just leading up to Christmas, just leading up to the holidays? If you want a stocking stuffer, if you want to go to your spouse and say, honey, you want to be my champion, I've got a sewing machine of sewing machines, even more rare than this 301. Did I mention? I don't think I mentioned. The 301 was introduced in 1952. How long did they make this machine? I'm throwing all kinds of questions at you guys today because I know you can handle it because you're that smart. How long was this machine produced? Introduced in 1952. This machine was introduced in 1933, 34 at the Chicago World's Fair. This one was made for quite a while, the featherweight. They made 3.5 million of them. 3.5 million. How long did they make this machine that belongs to Marie Madson that I prepared exclusively for her? And if anyone wants to really demonstrate your brilliance, how many of these did they make? Because you'll notice the title of this live stream is this 301 is almost 20 times, I'm saying it, almost 20 times more rare in production numbers. In other words, the number of them that they made is almost 20 times more rare than this coveted featherweight that I'm preparing for Thalia out of the great state of Missouri. So first of all, back to the weight. Back to the weight. The weight, the weight, the weight. Back to the weight. If someone typed in the live chat, and I'm going to let my leaders, I've got a couple of leaders, I think, that are in this live stream. Maybe I don't. Maybe I only have Emma. Emma is the only leader right now, I think, that's in the live stream. But if anyone wants to do fact checking and see, did anyone put down that as big as a machine as the 301 is, with a huge sewing space compared to the featherweight, it only weighs 6 pounds. 6 pounds more than the featherweight. It only weighs 6 pounds more than the featherweight. So I'm in a sitting position right now on my workbench stool, and I can reach across the workbench like this, and I can pick this machine up because it only weighs approximately 16 pounds. The featherweight comes in at 11 pounds. the big sister to the featherweight, is only 5 pounds heavier. So if someone said 5 pounds, wow, you are brilliant. You're really smart. But are you smart enough to tell me how many of these they made? How many of these they made in that 1 year of production, 1952? They only made this machine in 1952. 1 year. 1 year they made the 301. How many of these did they make in that 1 year period? How many of these did they make? If you know that, I mean, you are, wow. I might ring the bell for you. I might just ring the bell. All right, I'm going to put on some more music while we're going through some of these questions. Emma just posted something that she probably got from the internet. She probably got it from the internet. And the internet is a wonderful resource. It's a wonderful, wonderful resource. But it's not always accurate, you guys. In all likelihood, they started manufacturing the 301 at the Elizabethport, New Jersey plant in 1951, as Emma asserts, but it was only offered to the public for sale in 1952. And so when you talk about production of a machine, you're talking about when is it available, or when was it made available to the general public to purchase it? The answer is 1952. So I'm not gonna get into a tussle with my dear friend Emma about 1951 to 1952, but I'm going to tell you that the correct answer that I was looking for on the manufacturing year of this machine, or when it was made available to the public, is only 1952. It was a year later, as Emma wrote, I think, yep, a year later, that its other big sister, the 301A, was first introduced at another manufacturing plant down in Anderson, South Carolina. So if you're in one of your groups on Facebook, if you're in a blog or whatever, and someone says the 301 was made from 1951 to 1952, you can gently correct them and say they might have started production in 1951, but it wasn't offered to the general public until 1952. So the production group size, the overall production availability of this machine is only in 1 calendar year. And that's what makes, I think, the machine even more rare, along with the number of them that they made. How many of these machines did they make? I don't know if anyone typed that in the chat or not. So we know that when we look at these two machines, the Princess of Singers, the Featherweight, that was introduced in 1933-34, and then the big sister to the Featherweight that was offered in 1952 to the public. We know that these machines are only only one is 16 pounds, one is 11 pounds. We know all that now because we learn in this classroom. But as I ramble on, how many of these did they make? I already told you how many of these they made if you were listening real closely during the class. They made 3.5 million of these. You can do the math. If I said that this is almost 20 times more rare in production numbers than this one, then how many of these did they make? Does anyone know that number? If anyone knows that number, I'm going to be really super impressed. Super duper impressed. Oh, okay. Hey, welcome to the Outboard Tinkerer 62. I don't know that I've seen that name before. The Outboard Tinkerer 62. Is that fun or what? And I'm only guessing that the Tinker was born in 62. Maybe. Or maybe they started tinkering in 1962. It's a mystery that we may never know. We may never know it. Susie is saying they only made 30 of them. Boy, I wish. Wouldn't that be fun? That would be super fun. They made more than 30. They made more than 30 of these 301s in their production year of 1952. They made actually 185,750. 185,750 of these 301s at the Elizabethport, New Jersey plant. When they were producing the Featherweight, primarily at the same plant, they did make some featherweights in the UK. They made some featherweights over in Kilbowie, Scotland. They made some featherweights up in Canada. But the primary production of the featherweight was also at the very same plant in Elizabethport, New Jersey. They made 3.5 million of these. They made 185,750 of these. That's why I say a lot of people will, jump into some of these groups on Facebook, jump into some of these blogs. They'll be on Pinterest, they'll be on YouTube, there'll be other places, and there'll be a chat up about the Princess of Singers, the Featherweight. And they're an owner already of a 301 or a 301A. They almost apologize like, well, I don't have a super cool machine. I only have a 301 or a 301A. I don't have a featherweight. Because in these groups that are almost like a cult, and I'm saying that with a big smile that you can't see. The featherweight owners, they have their own exclusive little club, and they will get their feathers up in a tussle if someone tries to say that a machine is more cool or more rare than their featherweight. But I really want you guys to understand that the 301 was only offered to the public in 1952. And it was only produced in numbers that are about 1/20th of the featherweight. So if you own a 301 or a 301A, you have a machine that is in sheer production numbers much more rare than the featherweight 221 or 22-1. Not quite as rare as the featherweight free arm, the free arm convertible that was made exclusively in Scotland. Does anyone know when we talk about the featherweight free arm? In other words, instead of just having an extension bed, the extension bed pulls away from the machine, and then you have a free arm function on the featherweight as well. It's called the 222K. Does anyone know approximately how many of those they made in the 8 years that they made it in Kilbowie, Scotland? So they made a featherweight free arm. It's called a convertible. How many of those do you think they made during 8 years in Kilbowie, Scotland? Anyone know? Type it in the chat if you know. That's a tough question. I know that. But it's valuable to know that, because those people that have 222Ks, they have equal bragging rights with the 301, 301A owners. They have equal bragging rights. Anyone want to step out and roll the dice on a number of the 222Ks that they made exclusively in Kilbowie, Scotland? Susie's saying about 150,000. That's a little bit high, but really close. It's an excellent guess. That's an excellent, brilliant guess, Susie. A little bit high, 150,000, just a little bit. I'll give you a big hint. It's more rare than even the 301, or not quite as rare as the 301A. Or wait, switch that, reverse that. You know what I meant. Holy mackerel. Is the Outboard Tinkerer 62 saying that they have 7 or 8 222Ks? That would be crazy. Clarify that statement if you would, Outboard Tinkerer 62. What do you have 7 or 8 of? What do you have 7 or 8 of? A lot of people have multiple featherweights. I don't know why, but I guess they just like collecting them. And some people have more than one 301 series singer. So Emma guessed 100,000. Susie's guessing 5. I can't read what that says. Does that say 7,500 or she's saying around 7,500 in 1959? I don't know what Susie's answer is for 1959. Maybe that's somebody they made in the year of 1959. Because again, they produced the 222Ks in Kilbowie, Scotland for 8 years. So, at any rate, I'm waiting to see if the outboard Tinker 62 clarifies what they have 7 or 8 of. If they have 7 or 8 222Ks, that would be absolutely insane. That would be insane. So the answer is, and I'll actually type it into the chat. How many 222Ks they made over an 8-year period? Now, the average production group size of Singer typically with machines was anywhere from 25,000 up to 100,000 machines. That's in one production group cycle. So when you look at them producing the 222K, which is the free arm convertible version of the Featherweight, the fact that they only made this number of them in 8 years is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. So I just typed it into the chat. And there is, let me just clarify my answer that I just posted in the live chat. Of over 8 years in Kilbowie, Scotland, they produced 110,000 of the Featherweight convertibles, the Featherweight free arms, the 222Ks. But there is some dispute on that. The numbers fluctuate a little bit. So I think Emma is also spot on with her answer of 100,000 because the numbers fluctuate between 100,000 to 110,000. There's some people that'll say 103, 105, 108. So there's not a complete agreement on those final production numbers. I know old outboards like Scott knows his sewing machines. Well, that's a very kind remark. So you must love boating. And if you're ever in this neck of the woods, I would love for you to visit the workshop. And I'm speaking right now to the outboard Tinker 62 because Oconto, Wisconsin is almost world renowned for fishing and boating. We've got a beautiful causeway that extends a half a mile into the Bay of Green Bay. And we have people that from all over the country come here for sturgeon fishing in the winter. They ice fish. They come here for perch. They come here for walleyes. They come here for bass of different types. So yeah, if you love boating, you would love coming here. And maybe you could even sneak in a tour of cruiser yachts. They do a lot of yacht making here as well, and they ship their boats all around the world. I probably shouldn't say boat. That's probably insulting to them, isn't it? But they ship their big boats, their very big, expensive boats, all around the world. And it's a beautiful area to visit if you love water, if you love boating, if you love fishing, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, the old metal. Oh, you love. So, our friend, the outboard Tinker 62, loves the Japanese clone type machines as well that were made post World War II. Also loves the German ones, the American ones, etc. So cool. Did anyone ask, or did and I'm not looking at the chat all the way at the top, did anyone ask our friend, the outboard Tinker 62, where are they from? What state? If they already shared that, then forgive me for that because I missed it. But I'd love to know what state they're from. Emma says New York. Oh, that's got to excite Emma. Did Emma share? I didn't look at the chat. Emma's originally from Brooklyn, New York. I got to say it like that, Brooklyn, New York. Emma's from Brooklyn, New York. So I don't know where in New York our friend is from, but we got a number of people that follow our channel from New York, don't we? What a beautiful, amazing state that is. I loved living in the what area did I live in at West Point? It's called what is it called? It's near Poughkeepsie. that area there. Oh, I forget what that area has like a nickname or something like that. I don't remember what that area is, but it's right by the Hudson River. I remember we played Navy. We played Navy one year when I was there, and they actually brought some of their big Navy vessels up the Hudson, and they were like honking their big Navy horn. You hear it up on the campus above. If you've never been to West Point Military Academy, it looks down on the Hudson River. So as you looked over Trophy Point and down Hudson, you could see these huge Navy vessels. It's amazing that they didn't get stuck, but apparently the Hudson is pretty deep, and I'm sure they did their reconnoiter and research before they drove these big vessels on the Hudson. And it would have been hilarious if they'd gotten them stuck, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that have been hilarious? Oh my gosh, that would have been great. But they didn't, because the Navy people are very smart, and they did their research. But at any rate, that maybe it's called, oh, what is it called? Any rate, I won't drone on about that. But at any rate, New York is a great state. If you've never visited it, you definitely should consider doing that. I believe Emma has a trip planned to go to New York sometime in the near future. She mentioned that to me recently, but I don't want to share any news that she doesn't want me to share, but I just sort of did, didn't I? So sorry about that, Emma. But Emma is originally from Brooklyn, New York. I don't know what part of New York the outboard tinker is from, but probably somewhere in the, in that area. I don't know. I'm guessing. I'm totally guessing. Yeah, I mean, they had a number. I'm answering. I'm answering real quick, and then we need to jump into this. Uh, we've been running about 37 minutes already, and I haven't sewed off a thing on this 301. So if if the owner Marie Madson is in the shadows right now, if for whatever reason, I guess you have to do some additional setup to be able to chat on YouTube. I'm not really smart on that, but we've had a couple of owners that have joined the live streams, and they've watched the live stream of their machine, but they didn't take the additional step to sign up. Oh, there's Marie. I am here. Hey, everybody say hey to Marie Matson. Marie Matson is my owner of this 301 that we've been blah, blah, blahing about, and really making her puff up, knowing that her 301 is almost 20 times more rare in production numbers than this featherweight that everyone gets all crazy about. So that's really cool. Yeah, nice. I don't even remember what I was talking about. I just totally lost my mind there. But yeah, it's always great to have an owner in the live stream, isn't it? So they can see their machine do the dance. Yeah, welcome to Cynthia too. Cynthia Mandek. I hope I'm saying that right. Mandek. I don't know where Cynthia's from, but I'm guessing Emma or Susie is probably going to find out. They always ask, you don't have to share where you're from, but I don't think it's being overly privacy pushy to ask what state you're from, especially when we only know your screen name. So if you're willing to share, we would love to know. From Pennsylvania. Hey, welcome to Cynthia from Pennsylvania. That's so cool. So I don't remember. Somebody remind me what I was talking about before. I got all excited in seeing Marie pop up on the live stream, because some of the owners have said, I tried to join the live stream and I couldn't do it. I needed to do something else and I hadn't done it or something. I have no idea. But yeah, Marie Matson is from Wisconsin. Absolutely. And when we get done with this live stream, I'm guessing sometime next week, I don't want to speak for Marie, but sometime next week, she'll make the trip to the workshop and come and pick up her big sister of featherweights. Yeah, I'll show you the machines again in case you joined the live stream a little bit late. Talking, and you can see why the ladies, primarily the ladies of the day, really pushed Singer as much as they loved the featherweights. They really, really pushed Singer to get them to come out with a bigger platform for sewing. And that's when they rolled out the 301 in 1952. And Emma's right. They probably started, if you're going to roll out a machine in 1952, it's kind of like making a car. If you have a car that was made supposedly in 2020, 2021, last year's model. If you have a car that was made in 2021, it's very possible that that car was actually made in 2020, right? Because as good as these manufacturers are, if they want to sell a new product, whether it's a car or a sewing machine, starting in 1952, making it available to the general public, they're going to start making it at least probably a year in advance so that they got them stocked up and they roll them out to their Singer stores and they start pushing them out the door with all of these new Singer owners. But regardless, I mean, the evolution from the princess of singers to the big sister of singers was a major step for Singer. And I didn't talk about it in detail, but you might be saying, or you might have said, what are some of the main differences between these two machines? This one came out in 33, 34 at the Chicago World's Fair. This one was introduced through the Elizabethport, New Jersey plant in 1952. What are the main differences between these two machines? Well, we already know that this one is 5 pounds heavier, but it also has other unique features that the Featherweight doesn't have. It's got a slant needle design. So as you look at it from the side, you'll see that the needle is angled, which gives you a huge advantage when you're sewing with this 301, because you can see that stitch line going down well in advance of what you can see on this Featherweight. That's why they came out with the slant needle design, where the needle is actually on an angle and it's laying down the stitches closer to you, so you can see those stitches being laid down much quicker and much sooner than on the Featherweight. It also has something else that the Featherweight doesn't offer, and that is, if I tilt these beds up, kind of look underneath the beds of these machines, you can see on the Featherweight that there's no way to drop the feed dogs. If you want to do free motion quilting, if you want to do basically freehand embroidery with a Featherweight, unless it's a 222K, on the 222K that they only made about 100 to 110,000 of in Kibali, Scotland over that 8-year period, on that particular model of the Featherweight, there is a feed dog drop right near the stitch length controller. But they added it to the 301. That's what this is right here. You can drop the feed dogs and you can do free motion quilting and freehand embroidery without adding a darning plate to the 301. On the Featherweight, the standard Featherweight, you have to have a darning plate over the feed dogs in order to do free motion quilting or freehand embroidery. On the 301A and the 301, like Marie Matson's, you don't need a darning plate. You can drop the feed dogs straight away just by turning this little knob right there. So that's another cool thing, a super cool thing about the 301. The other thing is on the standard Feather and on the 222K, you have a standard motor size of 0.4 amps, 0.40. So it's a pretty small motor. But when I present Thalia's Featherweight, as I've done with other Featherweights, I'm going to be sewing leather with this machine and everything under the sun, because I always like to demonstrate that even though it's a little Mighty Mite, even though it's a tiny little motor on the Featherweight standard model, it's a very powerful motor after I've optimized it in the workshop. Very powerful. But as we look at Marie Matson's, this 301 back here, they totally changed it up with a big sister to the Featherweight. They said, we're not going to run the big sister to the Featherweight with a belt. We're going to make it a beltless machine. We're going to make it a direct drive machine so that it never, ever has issues with launch and slippage on that pulley as it spins up like the Featherweight sometimes has. We're also going to make it a little bit bigger motor. Instead of a 0.4 amp motor, we're going to make it a 0.54 amp motor. And we're going to create a motor that is a tower style motor, where at the top it's got a worm gear that interlaces with the meshing gears on the balance wheel. And as soon as you hit the gas on this machine, there's no slippage. It's direct drive. It's positive traction. Right away you'll launch, as long as you have that take-up arm at the highest position. So that's another, what I consider an upgrade on the original Featherweight that they did with the 301 that belongs to Marie Matson. You've got all these extra enhancements. You can drop the feed dog. You've got the slant needle, so you can see those stitches getting laid down much quicker than on the Featherweight. You've got the ability to launch with positive traction with a motor and a drive system that never requires a belt. Inevitably, on the featherweights, you're going to get a glazed belt or a cracked belt. You're going to have to replace the belt. Not so on Marie Matson's machine. It's going to sew and sew and sew and sew and sew, and you'll never have to replace a belt on it, which is really cool. So let me finally get Thalia's featherweight centennial model out of the way. This little princess always wants to be in the limelight, always wants people to say, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. Well, we're going to get you out of the way now because this live stream is sort of kind of about you, because the 301 came as an answer to people loving you and clapping for you when you come into the room, but they wanted more. And that's what Marie Madson has with her big sister to the featherweight. Yep, there you go. All right. So let me make another little transition here. A little bit more music, maybe. Finally going to sew with this big sister to the featherweight. Now, the other thing I'll tell you about this big sister to the featherweight is it uses exactly the same bobbins as the featherweight that I just took off of the workbench. So when they upgraded to this 301 model right around 1952, they ended up maintaining the same bobbin case and the same bobbins. So if you have a featherweight already, or if you have a 301 or a 301A, and then you end up getting another model, let's say you have a featherweight, you add a 301, or you have a 301, you add a featherweight, you can flip those bobbins and bobbin cases back and forth between the two machines. Now, when you're setting up this machine for sewing, you need to make sure that the flat side of the needle is pointing to the left. And when you thread this 301, you're going to thread it from right to left. You want to get that right, otherwise you'll have all kinds of problems. Yeah, you will. And I'm sewing with a different needle today. I'm sewing with a different needle. Let me show you what it is. You may not even known that these existed until Emma mailed these to me just as a gift. Emma mailed these from Naples, Florida to the workshop probably a year or so ago at least, maybe longer. And she said, Scott, I don't know if you knew, I know you love your Schmetz universal needles, but have you ever given the Husqvarna universal needles a try? And I said, no, I didn't even know that they existed. So if you didn't know that they existed, now you do. So we're going to be sewing with one of these Husqvarna size 9014 needles today, and we'll see how it performs in comparison to the German engineered Schmetz needles that I love. And also my dear friend Alex Askarov from the UK. Most of you know Alex. He's been in the sewing business a long, long time. Alex also is in love with Schmetz Universal 9014 needles. I actually mailed him some, and along with a cool cap. And because needles are sometimes hard to find apparently over in the UK, and they're sometimes a little bit outrageously priced. We can get needles like the Schmetz needles at most retailers or sewing quite easily. Over in the UK, they're a little bit more scarce. So if you know anyone that lives in the UK and is his fellow sewist, and you want to really make them happy as a stocking stuffer for Christmas, as Christmas approaches, drop them some needles in the mail and send them to them in the UK, and they will forever love you. Yes, they will. They will love you. So I want to give the owner an opportunity to help set, since she's been so patient, waiting for me to stop blah, blah, blah. I've got a number of sew-offs potentially prepared for this live stream today. I've got protected full grain leather, which is a wonderful leather to sew. It's got a special coating on it to protect it from staining and also to make it more durable. So it's tough leather to pierce, but I would love to sew this probably to the 1812 Overture. And then I've got some genuine elk hide as well. Look at how thick that stuff is. And a lot of people, they look at the 301s as more of a delicate machine, almost like a featherweight mentality, but they are anything but delicate. They're very strong machines, especially with that direct drive positive traction. So we're going to be sewing elk hide today as well. I've also got some crushed velvet. I thought I would pull out this pretty crushed velvet as we're getting closer and closer to Christmas, because I always think of velvet and Christmas. Is that weird? Hopefully not weird. So we got some crushed velvet. We'll probably try sewing as well today. And we might not get through all of these, but we'll give it a try. I've got some original denim, which has some of the crushed velvet stuck to it. So original denim. We'll probably do about 4 to 6 layers of this. I've got bubblegum material. I've got naga hide, the fake leather stuff that they used to make chairs out of all the time. 2 layers of that we'll sew. I've got this vinyl paper stuff, which is a hoot. And again, you can get this at your local Dollar Tree. They're using it for all kinds of craft projects now, and it's fun to sew. So we're going to do 2 layers of this vinyl paper stuff today. Keep track of what I rattled off because, I've got more of this protected full grain leather. I'll probably throw that to the side. I've got commercial upholstery material. I've got this compressed felt. Compressed felt, again, is heat treated and compressed, so the fibers are really compacted, really hard to sew through. It's tough stuff. We're going to try to do 2 layers of that today. And then finally, last but not least, I've got a couple of long strips of saddle grade leather. So I rattled off all the potential sew-offs that we have. This big stack right here, potentially. I want the owner, and I'm going to look at the chat now. If the owner wants to pipe in, Marie Madson, and say, Scott, would you sew this first? And then would you do this? And then would you do that? Let's go in clusters of 3, and we'll see if we can get through this pile during this live stream. So we'll go with Marie Madson as the owner. Thicker the better. I like to make bags. Marie Madson makes bags. Did you guys know that? I know she told me that, but I tell all the time apologetically, owners, I say, when I communicate with an owner, I listen intently. I'm not multitasking. I'm listening to that owner, but I talk to so many people through Facebook Messenger, through emails, through phone calls. I get calls in the middle of the night from different places in the world because they forget, it's a different time in Wisconsin. And my phone will go off sometimes at 2:00 in the morning. Yes, I silence it. Yes, I do. But I can still hear it vibrating. And I'm like, oh my gosh, somebody from Africa needs my help. Somebody from Africa needs my help. I got to take this call. And sometimes I do. And they're like, why are you answering the phone? It's 2:00 in the morning. Well, why are you calling me at 2:00 in the morning from South Africa? What's wrong with you? Ah, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, I mean, it's crazy, but it's fun. So thicker the better. And the owner said, I can choose. Cool. So we'll probably start with this saddle grade leather. And maybe we'll wrap this up in the end doing the 1812 Overture to this real big piece of protected full grain leather. So the thicker the better. Let's do saddle grade leather first. Let's do elk hide. What else do I have that's fairly thick? I could do upholstery material, multiple layers of that. And then we have heavy grade denim as well. So we'll probably move into some denim after that. Plus we have naga hide. So why don't we do this? Why don't we do, and I didn't test any of these in advance. I'm just telling you that honestly. All I tested in advance, because I have a lot of confidence in my approach to machines, is I tested just 2 layers of genuine, I always want to say genuine. Genuine is just fun, isn't it? This heavy grade denim, I did 2 layers of this as I was adjusting tensions and trying to get the tensions balanced nicely. So that's all I've sewn on this machine. So it hasn't gotten a huge workout yet. But we'll probably start either with saddle grade leather or elk hide, and then we'll do naga hide third. So 1, 2, 3, something like that. So let me do this. Let me get this saddle grade leather set up. Get that underneath the presser foot. And there's also really, really nice, if you didn't know it, there's very, very nice clearance underneath the presser foot of 301s. Now, the only thing about the 301s is that they do not have a hyperextension. And you're saying a hyper what? If you didn't know it, some sewing machines, when you raise the presser foot lever, let's knock something down. Oh, I knocked the sew off down. If you didn't know it, um, certain sewing machines, let me just set this here for right now so I don't knock it down a second time. Certain sewing machines, when you raise the presser foot lever, there's a little bit of play area above that space that will allow you to hyperextend the presser foot attachment higher up to get even more clearance. And the 301 does not come with that. What you see is what you get. But if you look from the side right now, that's a lot of space. So as Marie is working on her bags, she should be able to very easily work the bag thicknesses underneath this presser foot clearance. It's probably a good 6 millimeters clearance, maybe almost 7 millimeters. A lot of clearance. Okay, so the outboard Tinkerer 62 finally took us out of a suspenseful posture of, oh my goodness, gravy. Does this person from New York, the outboard Tinkerer 62, do they have 6 or 7 222Ks? They clarified they have 6 or 7 sewing machines. If you know of anyone that has 6 or 7 222Ks, I would love to meet them and interview them and clap for them, because an average 222K is going to be right around $2,000 to $2,500. $2,000 to $2,500. When I offer my 222K, shameless plug, when I offer my 222K, it's going to even be above that amount. So yeah, they're not a cheap machine to own, not at all. But if you take any of these vintage machines, say for example, Marie Matson's 301, they only made it two, and they only made about 185,000 of these machines. If you tried producing a machine like this today, you'd be paying about $3,000 at least. That would be the production cost, and then they'd have to bump up the price to try to make money on it. So if you don't think our vintage sewing machines are treasures, boy oh boy, do you need to talk to one of the veterans in this circle of trust right now and get set straight. Yeah, you do. So we've got finally, after I get done talking, we've got, oh, and I should show Marie as well. I showed Marie the needle that we have in there, this Universal by Husqvarna. I did show her that I'm also giving her as a special gift this. I reproduced this in full color. It's a professionally bound original copy of the original manual. I love original, don't you? Original of the 301 manual for her machine. So this is going to cover anything that she wants to know about that machine. Any questions that she might have will be answered through there. And anything the manual doesn't answer, give Emma a call. No, I'm just kidding. Give me a call and I'll answer it. So let's get going on this finally after all the blah, blah, blahing, shall we? Let's finally sew with this machine after we've been talking now for almost an hour. Goodness, I have the gift of gab. But we learn a lot when we gab, don't we? Yeah, we do. Okay, so let's go down these 2 layers of saddle grade leather, probably the thickness of about 7 ounces of leather. That's the way they talk about the heaviness of leather, the thickness of leather. So they talk about ounces, and the ounces translate into millimeters. So we're probably talking about almost 6 millimeters thickness, about 6 ounces, 7 ounces of leather. I want you to listen to Marie's machine when this machine plows through these 2 layers of saddle grade leather. Saddle grade leather is used to make gun holsters. It's used to make heavy goods that are made out of leather, different things. They probably make wallets out of these too. If you know other things that they use saddle grade leather for, type it in the chat. But it's a really, really beautiful leather to sew with. It's heavy duty, and it really lays down a beautiful stitch as well. So I'm going to get my take-up arm to the highest position. Again, whenever you're launching with a machine, make sure that take-up arm, that's this little thing right here. Make sure that take-up arm is at the highest position and that it's beginning to go on the downstroke. Then you won't get any binding when you launch. You won't get any binding of the machine. Okay? All right, let's give this a go. Could actually get even a little bit closer, couldn't I? If our LED light behaves. I do have an LED light in this machine, but it's a little bit further over, so it may not goof around with the camera today. All right, and I'm going to try doing this without a hand start. I'm going to try doing this with the sheer power and grit of Marie Matson's machine. Okay, let's try doing it just with the grit of the machine. All right, get my stool straight a little bit here. All right, here we go. 2 layers of saddle grade leather on this 301 prepared for Marie Madson out of the great state of Wisconsin. Hey, all right, here we go. Well, the machine is doing great. I sold a little bit crooked there. The machine is doing a wonderful job. I kind of I should have clipped that leather probably. I let it slip out of the way a little bit. I let it slip out of the way a little bit and sewed a little bit crooked. That's okay. As long as the machine does a great job, I'm okay with sewing a little bit crooked. So it's not a light sew off that we just did. And Marie said the thicker the better. 2 layers of saddle grade leather is pretty doggone thick. I'll show you from the side and then we'll look at these stitches. And again, I did not test the tension balance for sewing leather at this level. I tested it with 2 layers of heavy grade denim. Did not do it sewing 2 layers of saddle grade leather. So a little bit of a roll of the dice there, wasn't it? Let's take a look at these stitches now. All right. Oh, I'll show you the edge first. This is what we just went through. Can you see that in the shot? 2 layers of saddle grade leather, about 6 ounces of leather. And again, we're using a universal needle by Husqvarna. We're not using a leather needle. And we are using standard Coats and Clark thread, nothing fancy. Look at these stitches, you guys. I talk about page 34, and if any of the veterans in the live stream want to explain what page 34 means, apart from me not sewing incredibly straight, these are page 34 stitches. Again, a non-leather needle, basic Coats and Clark thread, going through 2 layers, about 6 to 7 ounces of saddle grade leather. And we've got stitching that is absolutely brag-worthy. Absolutely brag-worthy. There's where I started sewing crooked, right about there. Hey, I went uphill. Look at that. I went uphill. Hey. We'll pause right there. Folks, that's page 34 stitch. And I'm sure one of the folks already explained, page 34 means near perfect. I always think that things can be improved on. Things can always be made better. As beautiful as that stitching is through 2 layers of saddle grade leather, if we used a leather needle by Schmetz or by Husqvarna, if they make one, we could even improve on that stitch more. But that's a gorgeous stitch. And if Marie decides to make leather bags with her 301, she knows that this machine can handle it. And not a one-off, but again and again and again and again and again. Because while the machine is aluminum, this is an aluminum-based machine. That's why it only weighs about 16 pounds. Throughout the machine, forged steel, no plastic, forged steel throughout the machine. So as long as you maintain it in a general way, proper lubrication, etc., you can sew leather like this, making bags like Marie likes to make all day long. Come on, camera, you're on duty. So I could show this to you. I'll show it to you one more time, then let's flip it over and look at the lock stitch. The lock stitch is always harder to produce because it has to pull, that needle has to sweep down through these two thick layers of leather, and then it has to pull that thread back up. So it's always a little bit trickier to get a tip-top lock stitch by nature of the stitching that is requiring the stitching process. Here's our lock stitch now. Let's take a look at that. And you can see as that needle passes through, it actually creates a little leather tuft in between each of the stitches. Look for that leather tuft. That's actually where the needle comes through the bottom of the leather and it displaces that leather and creates a little tuft on the bottom. That's what we're looking at there. I think it's kind of cool, the little tuft thing. Yeah. So I'm really satisfied. It's a beautiful looking lock stitch, but like I said, you can always make things better. You can always make things better. The only thing I might do is right now, if I show the upper tension, right now we have the upper tension calibrated only at a little bit below 5, and the range of this upper tension is up to 9. So the only thing that I might do if I were sewing a ton of this saddle gray leather, making bags like Marie might do, is I would bump up that upper tension just a little tiny bit. It's a gorgeous stitch. If you look at that stitching, it's lovely stitching, but it has just a tiny little tip where the stitch, instead of being straight across, on some of the stitches, they're absolutely straight across as they should be. On other stitching, there might be just a little bit of a tip where it looks like one edge of the stitch is just a little bit higher than the other. I mean, you got to really look at it closely to see that. But when I get this close to it, if you see that, that's a tension issue. That's where, as that needle is passing down through these layers of leather and it's trying to pull that thread back through, it doesn't have quite enough muscle to pull that stitch nice and straight, nice and taut. So what you do then to increase that pull factor, again, your upper tension is going to be pulling up, your bobbin case down below is going to be pulling down to define that top stitch that we already looked at, to get that stitch just absolutely spot on. Again, they're very beautiful stitching, very beautiful stitches. But we can make them better by bumping up that upper tension just slightly, just slightly. And then we can eliminate that very subtle tip factor that most people probably wouldn't even notice because it's so subtle. But we notice it because look at how close I'm getting. If you could see, if you could be over my shoulder right now, we're probably 2 inches away from the leather right now because I want to get that close to it to show you. It's still a page 34 stitch, but we could make it better. And again, not a light sew off. This is what we went through. It's a lovely stitch there, lovely stitch there. But you can see the top stitch just is a little bit more poppy. It's just a little bit more poppy. That's because that bobbin case was pulling down harder than our upper tension was pulling up. So it's actually nice when things like this happen because it might happen to you in your sewing space and you're sewing leather for the first time and you're like, my machine must need to go to the workshop or be serviced in some way because on the bottom, it's real subtle, but on the bottom of that lock stitch, there's just a little bit of a tilt on the stitch. And you can fix it yourself now, knowing that that little tip up on the stitch on the bottom of the material is a product of this upper tension not having enough muscle. So if we were going to sew this again and again, I would go from about a little bit below 5, go up to about 5 or maybe a little bit over the top of 5, and then sew it again and see what we think. So yeah, it's fun to learn, isn't it? It's fun to experience challenges and go, oh, I know what to do now. I know exactly what to do. Beautiful off. And Marie said the heavier the better. So we just did 2 layers of saddle grade leather. 2 layers of saddle grade leather. All right, a little bit of music so I can get a drink of soda real quick. Let's play a song called Peachy. Peachy. And I'll also tell you that this 301 came from my personal collection. It's an original owner machine, which means the original owner that bought it back in 1952 bought it brand new, and I bought it from them. So it's great to have an original owner machine. You know the provenance of that machine. This machine I did take to my workshop, and I did a little bit of added clear coat to protect the decals, but it is the original paint on this machine. Original paint with just a little bit of a bump up on the clear coat. So as you look at the machine, it literally looks like it just came out of the factory in Elizabethport, New Jersey, back in 1952. But when I look at it closely, there's very subtle imperfections where it's gorgeous. It's absolutely, when Marie has people come over or she travels somewhere with this machine, people are going to be drooling all over this 301. And then she'll have to give them like a quick little backhand and say, get away from the machine. Stop drooling. Stop drooling. But it's not quite museum quality, where I would take it all the way down to bare metal. I would repaint it. I would put on brand new decals, and then I would put on brand new clear coat. But it's an absolutely gorgeous machine. Don't you agree? Absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. Marie can even check her hair in this machine too, which is kind of fun, isn't it? Yeah. Kind of cool. Yeah, it's like a little mirror almost. All right. So what shall I do now? I will do Alkyd now. We're going to step it up even more. We're going to step up to Alkyd now. Now, if those of you that are not outdoors people, if you're not outdoors people, I'm not either. I'm not either. But look at the thickness of that Alkyd. It's like a thick belt. It's like a thick belt that we're going to be sewing through. And Alkyd is chemically processed, which means getting through this stuff is like going through concrete. I don't think Marie's machine is going to have any trouble with it. I don't think so. And I didn't test this, but I hope we don't have any challenges. I'll go down the left side, and that way Marie can, when she picks up the machine and gets it back to her place, she can sew down the right side. Let me get really close so you can look at this sew off. I'm a little bit nervous. I'm just being honest. I'm a little bit nervous because I didn't test this. I'm seeing that reflection. That's the light above there. Weird. All right, keep your fingers and toes crossed. We're trying to go through genuine Alkyd, about the thickness of a belt. And I'm going to try to do it without a hand start. If we hit this leather and the machine just goes, ugh, then I'll give it a little bit of a hand start. Sometimes you got to do that. Sometimes you got to do that. But first of all, I'm going to get that take-up arm to the highest position. Let's get that take-up arm to the highest position. Okay, so here we go. A very thick piece, because Marie is the boss. Marie is the boss in this live stream, if y'all didn't know that. She's the owner. She says the thicker the better. We're going to do the thicker the better. So we're doing this Alkyd now. Let's see if we can get down this, lay down some page 4 stitching without using a hand start. And I'm going to do one thing real quick. I'm going to edge my bet here a little bit. I'm going to do one thing real quick. I'm going to bump up upper tension just slightly, because we ran into a little bit of a tilt stitch with that saddle grade leather. We're going to go just a little bit above 5. Hopefully that's far enough. Go a little bit above 5. You don't want to adjust it too far, because if I go all of a sudden crazy and I'll go, I want to ensure that lock stitch is going to be just spot on. If I go too high up on the upper tension, then I'm going to be overpowering the bobbin case down below, and we're going to get a drabby dabby. Is that a real thing? A drabby dabby? I don't know if it is. We're going to be getting a drabby dabby top stitch, because if this is pulling up too hard, it's going to take away from the top stitch from that bobbin case pulling down. So we're only going to go a little bit above 5. A little bit above 5. We'll see if that gets the job done. See if that gets the job done. Again, I'm going to try it without a hand start. We'll see if I can get this done. Hopefully. And we'll see how this universal Husqvarna size 9014 machine needle does. These are kind of, I'm grateful that Emma sent them to me. I really am. And if you're joining the live stream late, this is what I'm talking about. Emma sent me this pack of Husqvarna universal needles. They're designed to be able to handle leather, but they're not really a leather needle. And they're not my Schmetz needles. All of you know I love Schmetz needles. I love them. So if Schmetz is listening right now and you want to put me on a commercial, I'll even put on clean socks and comb my hair. Yeah, I will. Because I love Schmetz needles. But it's fun to try a different needle just to see how it does, right? It's fun. All right, here we go. A very thick layer of genuine elk hide with Marie Madson's 1952 301. Let's see how she does. Here we go. What? I'm going to stop right there. There's no hesitation. What? Holy mackerel, this is a beast. You've got to be kidding me. What? That's insane. It went through that genuine elk hide. Like, what's the big deal? You're out building all this fanfare up. Do you have any idea? I'm not just gorgeous and sexy. I'm not just gorgeous and sexy. I'm also very, very strong. I'm very strong. And you're building this up like it's such a big deal. I'm going to sew that elk hide with no difficulty whatsoever, which is what Marie's machine just did. Kind of embarrassing. I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so hard. Oh, golly gravy. It's going to be so difficult. Let me grab my sew off holder. It's going to be so difficult. And then her machine just goes, done. What's next? What's next? All right. Let's take a look at the stitches and we'll see if our adjustment on the upper tension to give us an even better defined lock stitch paid off. But hopefully I didn't go too far. Hopefully I didn't go too far and end up taking away from our top stitch. I don't think the camera's focusing right now. Is it focusing? I was trying to show you the number, but at any rate, it's the number. It's just a little bit above number 5. The camera's being naughty right now. All right, let's look at this stitching on this genuine elk hide. There we go. Finally, it came in. Put on a little bit of music while we're doing this. And again, we can make this, even before I see these stitches, we can make it better using a leather needle. Look at the thickness of that we just went through. And the machine made it look like a walk in the park. So I'm gonna call that, and this is from a distance, I'm gonna call that a page 34 stitch, but I may have gone just a little bit higher than I needed to here to offset that. We're gonna probably have a very nicely defined lock stitch. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at that lock stitch now. Look at the thickness right there. Absolutely crazy. totality of the stitching, I'm really pleased with that. And the other thing I've got to take into account is that we're using a different needle. I'm a big fan of everything Husqvarna. I'm a big fan, but I'm a bigger fan of my Schmetz needles. And depending on the design and the engineering of a needle, it can also have an impact on that final stitch result. We've got a beautiful page 34 stitch, both on the lock stitch and also on the top stitch, going through a thickness like that. But I think we could make it even better if I were to go back to my Schmetz needles. But you know what? All that set aside, it's a gorgeous stitch. It truly, truly is. Beautiful stitching. And again, that is through about 6 to 8 ounces of genuine elk hide. So very, very pleased with that. It's fun to look at stitches like this too, isn't it? Vertically. And I didn't mention, there's a lot of progress shots that I posted on Facebook of Marie's 301 kind of going through the workshop magic. So you'll want to check those out too. Even if you don't do Facebook, I think you can still see the pictures. I'm just blown away by how easy Marie's machine, her 301, made that sew off look. Just absolutely crazy. That's a tough sew off. And it did it so, so easily. All right, let me move this. Whoops. Let me move that out of the way. I'm actually getting kind of warm down here. I'm going to take off my DeWalt jacket. So if you're joining the live stream late, we've got a 1952 301 slant needle machine, the very first slant needle machine that Singer came out with in 1952. Does anyone know, apart from the 301A that was introduced in 1953 at the manufacturing plant in Anderson, South Carolina, outside of the 301 series, what was the next machine that's a slantomatic, as they refer to it, to come on the scene? And if you know the year, that would be amazing. That would be totally crazy, insane, amazing, amazing. Does anyone know? So the 301 came out in 1952. They started production on this machine in 1951, as Emma pointed out. And then they came out with a 301A that was made from 1953 to 1957 at the Anderson, South Carolina plant. In that window of time when the 301A was being made down in Anderson, South Carolina, there was one other machine. There was one other machine that's a slantomatic that came on the scene. Does anyone know what model that is? Type in the chat if you know what model that is. If you know the year it was produced, that'll be crazy impressive. Crazy impressive. Let's put on some music while you're contemplating that question. I should get a drink of soda while I'm standing up. Oh, that hit the spot. So Emma said 401 and Susie said 404. I've got to give credit on this answer. Holy mackerel. Our owner just jumped in and not only said 401, but said, by the way, 1956. Both Emma and our owner are spot on. The model that came out after the 301 series was, in fact, let me turn our volume down a little bit, was, in fact, the 401A. And the 401A was made, as the A would imply, was made at the Anderson, South Carolina plant. It was initially made in 1956, and then they made it until, does anyone want to guess the end date of when they stopped making the 401A? And again, if you're not familiar with the 401A, you can find videos of it on the Cow Country YouTube channel. Lots of videos on the 401A. It's really quite an amazing machine because not only can you put cams into the machine, but it's got a ton of built-in stitches as well that are in a cam stack. Any guesses on the end date for the 401? I'm going to type it into the chat in just a little bit and then get us through some more sew-offs for Marie's machine. So I'm getting ready to hit enter. If no one's going to type in a guess as far as how long they made the 401A at the Anderson, South Carolina plant, I'm going to hit enter right about now. Oh, I just barely beat Emma. Emma's she's a great student and a fellow teacher, and she really loves facts, the details. She's a science-minded lady, very, very science-minded, and loves, give me the facts, let me study the facts, let me analyze the facts, and always does a brilliant job. All of you do a brilliant job, but it's always fun having Emma in a live stream because she's like, oh, I know. She's got her hand up in the air in her house, and only her dog can see it because I can't see her hand up in the air. I can't see it. Emma, I can't see your hand, dear. I can't see it. I'm sorry. So they made the 401A from 1956 to 1961. There was about a 2-year pause, and then they came out with 2 more slant-o-matic machines after the 401A. And the 401A was still in production. I'm trying to give you some big hints here. The 401A was still in production. Again, it was produced until 1961. It was still in production when these other 2 slant-o-matics rolled onto the scene. Actually, you know what? I'm wrong. I'm totally wrong. There were actually not 2 slant-o-matics that came on the scene while the 401A was still being produced. There were actually 4 slant-o-matics that came on the scene while the 401A was still being produced. I'm glad I caught that. I almost misspoke. I did misspeak, but then I spoke correctly. So the 401A ends production in 1961. In that window between 1956 1961, there were 4 other slant-o-matics that came on the scene. Singer was just popping them out. They're like, people love the slant-o-matics. We're going to just keep popping them. Keep popping them. So Maria's right. One of those machines that came on the scene was the 403A. So if Marie would do me a kind favor and on the next text line type in 403A and then like a dash or something like that, and then put down 1958 to 1960. 1958 to 1960 is when the 403A was produced. And the A again indicates Anderson, South Carolina. So it was not made in New Jersey. It would have been made in the great state of South Carolina. Yeah, South Carolina. The machine after that, and if Marie wants to type this in as well, it's totally cool. The next machine in line would have been the 404, which is a straight stitch only slant-o-matic machine. And that was produced from 1958, started in the same year as the 403A, but it ran 3 years longer until 1963. So the 404 was produced from 1958 to 1963, and it was a straight stitch only machine. After the 404 came the 500A. The 500A, which I think I've only shown one time on this channel. You don't see a lot of them. The 500A was produced from 1961, so it just barely snuck in there right at the end of the 401A production cycle, ending in 1961. There were 2 other slant-o-matics that came on the scene. Hey, Bry Guy, welcome. Welcome, Bry Guy. Just as the 401A was ending production in 1961, Singer said, we want to roll out 2 more slant-o-matics in 1961 so that people don't lose interest in the slant-o-matic style machines. So they rolled out the 500A in 1961, and they ran with that until 1963. So They ran with it until the same end year as the 404. And then right after that, they said, you know what? Let's do another 500 series machine. They came out with the 503A. And some people refer to this as the Rocketeer. I think they do anyway, don't they? I think some don't they call the 503A? I think some people call the 500A a Rocketeer too, but more people call the 503A the Rocketeer because it looks space age. I've got that on this channel as well if you want to look it up and check it out. But they produced this 503A, started in the same year as the 500A in 1961, and they produced it also until 1963. So the 500A, the 503A had exactly the same production window, 61 to 63. That was it. That was it. The 503A and the 500A were the last of the Slant-O-Matic series. And again, we started that journey of the Slant-O-Matics where people started to fall in love with being able to see that stitch line because of the slant foot, the slant needle. We started that journey all the way back in 1952 with Marie's 301. Marie's 301 started it all. And then the 401A came, the 403A came, the 403A came, the 404 came, the 500A came, and then the 503A finally. Yeah. So it's kind of cool to have that journey. Kind of cool to have that journey with these Slant-O-Matic machines. Hopefully that's helpful. And I want to thank the owner. I want to thank the owner for typing all those in because this will be available after the live stream is done. People will be able to come back and view the video, and the live chat will pop up, and they'll be able to see the comments that all of you made, including the owner's comments about the bracket years for these different Slant-O-Matic models. So thank you again to Marie for being such a go-getter and making that happen. So now I think we're going to sew this Naugahyde stuff, this fake leather stuff. That was our next planned sew off. Put on a little bit of music to get our groove going. To grab that Naugahyde. And Naugahyde, again, is a man-made material. Emma or Susie or other regulars might know a little bit more of the history of this stuff, but I know it's got a bunch of vinyl in it, so it's tricky stuff to sew. It tends to cause machines to skip stitches. I think Marie's machine will do well with it, will do very well. We're going to go through 2 layers of this stuff. You can see it also has almost like an upholstery backing on it. So we're going through the Naugahyde, plus we're going through that upholstery stuff. Not crazy thick, but fairly thick. I would say the leather equivalent to this stuff is probably going to be about 6 ounces, somewhere in that neck of the woods. So let's get it underneath the presser foot and see how Marie's machine does with this. And maybe I'll clamp it so that I don't sew off target quite as badly. See if I can sew a little bit more straight this time. Grab a couple of my little clamps and see if I can. I'll put on 1 clamp. I don't want to. These are plastic based, but I still don't want to scratch Marie's machine. Once we get our stitch line going, I'll take these off just because I'll put them inside. So let's launch now and do this Naugahyde material. Yeah, and if anybody knows anything about Naugahyde, wants to type it into the chat, that would be totally cool. Oh, it looks like our friend Christina joined us from Brazil as well. Brazil is a beautiful country, isn't it? As a matter of fact, if I'm mistaken, and hopefully I'm not sharing any deep, dark secret, but my local friend, Renee, her daughter-in-law is originally from Brazil. I hope Renee doesn't mind me sharing that. Yeah, originally from Brazil. Beautiful country. Wow. So many places I want to visit. So many places I want to visit. All right, let's sew this Naugahyde, and hopefully these little clamps help me a little bit in sewing a little bit more straight. Let's see how I do. All right, here we go. Naugahyde, 2 layers. Oh, I'm noticing something right away. We'll look at this afterwards. We do not have for this type of material because it's real slippery. It's real slippery on top. It's as my father would have said, it's slicker than snot. It's slicker than snot here, and then we've got a slick side on the bottom as well. We do not have enough presser foot pressure. We don't have enough presser foot pressure, and what results when you encounter that is instead of getting the fullness of the stitch because of the slippery surface, and we're using a standard presser foot attachment, you end up getting stubby stitches. So instead of getting 6 stitches per inch, you're getting more like 10 to 12 stitches per inch. We'll finish off our line of stitching, and then we'll look at that stitching. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. I'll take these clamps off down here and move them down a little bit further. I'm already off the material. I might as well just give up. I'll just give up and just finish the sew off. But you're going to see that stubby stitch. Here we go. So if you ever have that happen, there's nothing wrong with the mechanics of your machine. It's a matter of inadequate presser foot pressure. And sometimes you need to switch. There are a number of attachments for the Slant-O-Matic machines. I don't know if there's probably a roller foot for the Slant-O-Matics as well. I don't know that I've ever had one. But sometimes when you're sewing something like this, you need to go to a different presser foot that's going to give you better traction, or you need to go to a higher threshold as far as that presser foot pressure. Let's take a look at these, and you'll see we've got some beautiful stitching, but they're compressed. They're compressed because we didn't have good traction. See if I can get this to lay down. This stuff right away, if you look at it here, it right away starts to curl because of that vinyl in it. See that? Right away it's curling. And that's part of the trick with sewing something like this, is trying to get the adequate traction so that it doesn't slip when it's being fed. Let's see if I can, maybe I'll use one of those clips to hold this in place. Put one more clip on the other side. See how that's curling? You get something that has high concentration of vinyl, it's going to tend to do that. All right, let's take a look at these. Beautiful stitches, but they are compressed. Instead of getting about 6 stitches per inch, we ended up getting about 10 to 12 stitches per inch. Here it gave us a little bit more of a defined stitch because we were down to a single layer, and this had better traction on this side with that upholstery material, or that backing that it has. Let me get the camera to focus. I'm going to move my finger out of the way too. I'll kind of come at an angle. Come on, camera. So you can see the inconsistency when you're dealing with a material like this that has a real slippery surface. If you look way to the left over here, you'll see that we were achieving, for a limited amount of time, we were getting closer to 6 stitches per inch. But then we got into the thick of the material. We had slippery material top and bottom. The feed dogs were having trouble gripping it. And it's not because the feed dogs are dull. They're gorgeous feed dogs. But this is just such a slippery material with a standard presser foot, and with the presser foot pressure not all the way bumped up. So we ended up getting a stubby stitch. You see the difference right there. I didn't change the stitch length, but you can see we were at about 6 stitches per inch, and then it dropped all the way down to about 10 to 12 stitches per inch. And that's all a matter of feed. That's a feed factor. And at certain points, the feed dogs would get a grip on it, and they'd start to move it evenly. Right about there. And then it would start to slip again. If I had done a single layer of this, the results probably would have been different because we would have that backing, that gray backing to grip it. But look at how stubby they got here. That might have been at our initial launch. That was at our initial launch. It was really slipping there. The feed dogs were having a lot of trouble gripping this slippery Naugahyde, nylon-based type, vinyl-based Naugahyde. And there we got super stubby stitches. Nothing wrong with the machine. That's a product of traction, and that's a product of feed. So if that's ever happened to you and you've been puzzled, what's going on, what's wrong, you now know that that's a feed factor. The machine did a brilliant job with such a difficult sew-off where we got some really nice even stitching right there. But then it would start to lose a grip on this slippery stuff, and we would get that feed factor kicking in with getting stubbier stitches. So you've got to be mindful of that. You know, pressure foot pressure, the type of attachment that you're using, making adjustments. If you're going to be sewing a ton of Naugahyde bags, you'll have to make certain adjustments to make it work. I'm flipping it over now so we can look at that lock stitch. I'm going to clip that in place. We'll take a look at this lock stitch now. So no difference. It's going to be basically a mirror image. Here we were launching. We had a slip factor there. These slippery surfaces of this Naugahyde. The feed dogs could not bite into it, could not get a grip on it. And so we got a stubby, inconsistent stitch right there at the launch. And then this Determined 301 said, this is really crazy. It's really difficult. But then it bit into that material a little bit more here. And you can see we got a nice even stitch starting to be created right there. But then it lost its grip again as we started to move down that Naugahyde. These two layers are I have them clamped in two places, but they're shifting a little bit. They're slipping. And so you get that stubby stitch factor as you're moving down the material. Still a lovely looking stitch, but inconsistent because of the material slipping as it's being fed over the feed dogs and underneath that presser foot. And it's important to know this because if you're making bags like Marie, she might decide to shift between different materials, and one material will be very, very kind and very responsive to her 301. Another one will try to challenge her. But again, there's different options you can apply, different presser foot attachments, and certainly bumping up the presser foot pressure with the machine as well. But I love for you to see stuff like this because it demonstrates a machine that is running perfectly, and yet because of our setup, the machine can still have difficulty executing what I would consider to be, the ideal stitch, So, and Naugahyde is just, I don't know if they still use this stuff or not, but it's probably one of the toughest sew-off materials that we'll do during this live stream today because of that feed factor. But the machine got through it beautifully, laid down some beautiful stitching. It's a feed factor that has to be adjusted if this is going to be sewn all day long. And adjusting presser pressure on this machine is real easy. You can see right here is our presser foot attachment adjuster, our presser foot bar adjuster. And if you turn it clockwise, you're going to increase the presser foot pressure. If you turn it counterclockwise, you're going to decrease it. So for that Naugahyde stuff, we would have to turn it probably a good 2 turns, maybe 2.5 turns to increase that presser foot pressure to set us up for success. Yeah, there we go. Let's see here. Oh, wow. I'm looking at our time. I'm just looking at some of the chat. Oh, I'm looking way at the top now, and Renee typed down the city that her daughter-in-law is from. So Renee has Christina very intrigued right now with the fact that she has a family member that lives in her neck of the woods, or lived in her neck of the woods originally, I should say. All right, so let's move on from that naughty Naugahyde. That's what I probably should call this stuff now, is call it the naughty Naugahyde stuff that just really can challenge any machine if you don't have a ton of pressure foot pressure. And ideally, you'd want to use either a walking foot or a roller foot if you're going to sew a ton of this stuff. But you can look at the side there, beautiful stitching, just inconsistent and stubby because of that feed factor. Here's the other side of it too. I'll just kind of show that to you again. Beautiful, beautiful stitching. So I'm going to throw that nasty Naugahyde in the back, that naughty Naugahyde in the back, and wipe over this machine again. Let's do some more sewing with it. We'll try to wrap this up pretty quick because I know it's getting late. It's getting late, especially for our folks that are on the East Coast. It's going on 9:30 p.m. for our East Coast folks, like our friend from New York that works with Outboard Motors. So I don't want to push this too much later, but we'll sew off on some other materials. Why don't we do some denim? Denim is a pretty popular material to sew. We'll do some denim. We'll do multiple layers of it. So this is our heavy grade denim. It has little specks of crushed velvet on it. So I'm going to fold this like this, get us up to 2 layers. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it about right here to get us up to 4 layers. And then I'm going to fold it one more time to get us all the way up to 6 layers. Now, I know that when folks are making bags, when they're making bags, denim is a real popular material to work with. So we're going to put Marie's 301 to the test with 6 layers of heavy grade denim. There's our thickness from the side. Here's our thickness from the other side. And we'll probably stitch down. I'll make a turn, and then we'll stitch back going the other way. So we can put this 301 to the test. And even with 6 layers of denim, I can fit that underneath this presser foot with no great difficulty at all. Fits under there very nicely. The only thing I should consider is, do I want to possibly let's see here. Just bumped up the presser foot pressure just a little bit. I don't think we'll need it because denim isn't as slippery as that Naugahyde stuff, but let's give it a go. All right, so 6 layers of heavy grade denim. And we'll see how this 301 does. Now, I don't think we'll have any traction issues because this doesn't have that slippery vinyl backing on it. Let's see how the 301 does with this. All right, here we go. Stop right there. Make my turn. Sew her to the other side. Let's sew to the finish now. And listen to Marie's machine run. Again, we're going through 6 layers of denim right now. If you tried this on one of the contemporary machines you can get at a local retailer that is going to have a lot of plastic inside of it, you probably would break the machine sewing something like this. So give a good listen. Give a listen to this machine as it's going through 6 layers of heavy grade denim. Here we go. And I'm not going to close the box. We'll just take a look at these stitches and kind of move forward. I'd like to get 1 or 2 more stitch offs done if we're able to before we move on to wrapping up this live stream. I just want to be considerate to those folks that are in a different time zone and not run too late with this. Beautiful stitching. And again, no feed factor issue whatsoever because we're dealing with a different material type. Let's get that set up. Take a look at that top stitch first, and then we'll take a look at that lock stitch afterwards. All right, I'll do this kind of backwards. We'll look at the totality of stitching first. Absolutely gorgeous stitching. And you can see right away that Marie's machine says, oh, thank goodness you got rid of that naughty Naugahyde. And you've given me a material that isn't going to be as slippery as snot. Now let's go around and look at these stitches. This is our top stitch again. Absolutely gorgeous. Wow. Beautiful, beautiful stitching. Let's turn it around and look at that lock stitch now. Look at totality of stitching first. And I'm really happy with these 6 layers of heavy grade denim. I didn't make any additional adjustments to the upper tension, and I'm seeing some really good looking balance between these stitches. The stitch formation, the stitch spacing, the integrity of the stitch is exactly as it should be. Let's get a little bit closer and kind of go around these stitches now. Or maybe I'll just go across because they're so close together. And while I'm not a huge fan of the Husqvarna universal needles compared to a Schmetz, all in all, they've been doing a decent job. They've been doing a decent job there, especially when you see a vertical stitch, like over here, you can see that stitch, the stitch beauty even more with greater clarity when it's vertical. Because when it's horizontal, it's kind of in that little pucker factor of the denim, and it kind of masks that stitch just a little bit. But again, with a lock stitch like this, it's always going to be more difficult to generate because it's having to pull that Coats and Clark general thread back up through those 6 layers of denim. So some beautiful stitching. There's our totality of stitching. Lovely, lovely stitching. No traction issues whatsoever when you're sewing denim. Those feed dogs are able to grip it very nicely, and you get a beautiful stitch result to boot. Almost like a little quilted factor there in the middle, isn't it? Yeah, kind of cool. All right, let me throw this into our sew-off pile in the back. You see so far we've done the denim, we've done the Naugahyde, we've done the elk hide, we've done the saddle grade leather, 2 layers of that, and then these are my off-camera stitching below that. So what should we do next? Let me go back to the what we have left for material, and y'all can chime in. You all can chime in and help the owner if you'd like. Again, it's up to the owner. This is for her. But if the owner wants to allow you to kind of pick our next sew offs, that would be totally cool. So we've got commercial upholstery material here. We've got that compressed felt, which it's not like the felt you used back in school. This stuff is heat treated and it compresses and condenses those fibers. It's incredibly challenging to get through. We're going to do 2 layers of this stuff. We've got this vinyl paper. We've got the bubblegum material. We've got this crushed velvet material. This is going to be tricky to sew too. It's going to be real slippery like that Naugahyde. And then finally, we'll end this live stream with doing the 1812 overture, and I'll sew around in circles on this protected full grain leather. So those are our core options. The crushed velvet, the bubblegum material, the vinyl paper, the compressed felt, and the commercial upholstery material is what we have left that I prepared. So I'll let the owner have first right of refusal. Oh, the owner has given it to the audience. So if anyone in the live chat or anyone in the shadows wants to join the live chat, hey Scott, start with that or do this one. Do it in this order. Maria's given us permission to do that. So, but our choices again are crushed velvet, bubblegum material, vinyl paper, compressed felt, and commercial upholstery material. So what do you guys think? Anybody want to chime in? Otherwise, I will pick something because the owner's given us the option to do that. But I agree with Marie had written just above all the layers of denim, um, not having to turn the wheel. No, we didn't use a hand start for any of these sew-offs, including the elk hide, including the saddle gray leather. It's all the power of that direct drive tower motor that's mounted in this 301. Again, no belt. There's no belt on this machine. It's gear to gear, gear to gear. So it's really a wonderful machine as long as you launch at that highest position with the take-up arm, so it's on that downstroke. You're able to, you're able to, 6 layers of denim is impressive. I mean, if you look at that again, that's a thick sew-off. It truly is, with beautiful stitching. But this 301 could do more than that. You might even want to check out my videos. A couple of years back, I might have done like 8 layers of denim, or maybe 10. I don't remember. But 6 layers is still crazy. It's still crazy. So no one's choosing. The owner has given us carte blanche permission to do what we want to do, and no one's jumping out there. So I'm just going to jump out there and pick something, because we need to wrap this up as the hour gets later. So I will start. What will I start with? This is a tricky sew-off too, this bubblegum material. See this stuff? It's kind of like that naga hide, the naughty naga hide stuff. It's real slippery stuff. And it's stretchy. You can see that vinyl factor in it. I'm going to fold it in half. We'll go through, well, let's see. I could be crazy and try 4 layers of this. I usually do 2. I think I'll just do 2 layers. Let's not be totally insane, although it's fun. So we're going to go down and around on this bubblegum material. We'll go down and around. Should probably clamp it just to try to keep it a little bit more straight. And you've had a chance to hear Marie's machine run a lot. So I'm going to put on a little bit of background music, not real loud, just kind of soft. I didn't ask you guys about music on this live stream, what you wanted to listen to. I just kind of picked some random stuff. It's almost like a James Bond sound here. So I'm going to clip these and see if that helps me do a little bit better in staying straight. Maybe not. So bubblegum material, high vinyl concentration, 2 layers of it. Let's see how we do. Let's see how we do. A little bit nervous just because it has that slippery factor like that naga hide. We're using just a standard presser foot, and we're using not even close to max presser foot pressure. So let's see how we do. I think we'll do okay. All right, here we go. Almost went too far. Put the brakes on, Scott. Put the brakes on, buddy. Yeah, I went like right to the edge. Let me take these off now. And what I'm seeing is from this first stitch line, I'm seeing that our upper tension is overpowering our top stitch. You'll see what I mean when I look at it closer. So what I'm going to do right now, we had bumped this up a little bit before when we were doing those heavy leathers. I'm going to back this off just a little bit. Right now, we're just a little bit above 5. You might not be able to see that, but I'm going to back it off just a little bit to give a little bit more victory to our bobbin case down below. So we're going just a little bit below 5 now, because I'm seeing that our top stitch is a little bit underdefined. Our top stitch is just a little bit underdefined, and I want to fix that as I'm seeing it. Let me drop that presser foot again. Let's sew across. I came down too far, so we're going to be a little bit at an angle, but that's okay. I'm going to hand turn that so I don't go over the edge again. There we go. That little adjustment we just made, all of a sudden, where these were a couple little areas looked a little bit weak, now all of a sudden we've tightened it up again nicely. I'm going to kind of show you, give you a preview. This is still real nice stitching on this line over here. Still very nice stitching, but it was a little bit weak in a couple of areas. I could see that that upper tension was being a bully. And so I backed off that upper tension a little bit so that that bobbin case could pull down a little bit harder. And this stitch line we just laid over here already is showing a greater poppiness to it. It's already showing, hey, look at how pretty I am. I was still pretty over here, but I was a little bit weak. And now you've given me more opportunity to shine. Yeah, as it should be. All right, so now we're going to stitch down, finish off this stitch line. I don't know if I'll close the box or not. I've told you guys, and I've gotten some people that have been skeptical that it actually happens, but I actually get nasty notes from people if I sew down and around and I don't close the box. So sometimes I don't close the box just to be obnoxious, just to say, you know, hey, this is my channel. If I don't want to close the box, I'm not going to close the box. Now, if the owner says to me, if Marie says, Scott, would you please close the box? I'm going to close the box. So I'll leave it up to the owner. I'll sew down this next line. And if she says, would you please close the box? I'll close the box. Not for you box closers that write me nasty notes, but do it for the owner. That's what I'll do. Yeah. So I'll stitch down and then I'll wait for a little bit, see if Marie wants to respond. Here we go. There we go. Nice. Keep doing as you are. I got a little piece of metal in my finger. How did I do that? Ouch. Okay, so we're gonna thumb our nose at the box closers, and we'll just look at the stitching now on this bubblegum material. Again, it's not quite as slippery as the Naugahyde, but it's got a lot of vinyl in it. A lot of vinyl. That's why I can stretch it like bubblegum. And we'll see how Marie's machine managed this. I think you're going to be impressed because this is not an easy sew off at all. It's not even close to being easy. But this 301 is making the crazy sew offs, even with the heavy leather, look really, really easy. So this is our bubblegum material, 2 layers of this. Let's take a look at these. There we go. Folks, those are drop dead gorgeous. Drop dead gorgeous page 34 stitches. The spacing, the formation, the clarity of the stitch is just absolutely as it should be. Absolutely gorgeous. I think I expectorated a little bit there. That was nasty. I'm getting so excited, I'm almost spitting. Ah! So beautiful, beautiful stitching. We can kind of get even closer and go around and look at these. Absolutely. Wow. Wow! I'm actually moving the camera. I'm so wowish. And you may not be able to see it, but that little adjustment I made midstream really paid off. The rest of our stitching is even more poppy because of it. Very tricky material to sew with. Totality of the stitching, absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous stitching. I'm going to turn it over and look at the lock stitch. Again, the lock stitch is always going to be tougher for the machine because it's got to pull that thread back up through those layers of bubblegum material. Let's look at totality first. Folks, those are gorgeous stitches. They just are. Absolutely lovely stitches. We'll start all the way over here and kind of go around. Oh my goodness. This again is our lock stitch. To get a lock stitch at this level with a material as tricky as this, it just lets you know how amazing this 301 is. Just absolutely amazing. Totality of the stitching. Again, this is our lock stitch, our top stitch. There it is. Amazing, amazing. Let's throw that back in the pile with our other stitch offs that we've already done. Our little pile of sew off sandwiches as it is. Back up a little bit more temporarily here. All right, get this out of the way. Okay, so I'm gonna probably do this. Oh, let's go hardcore. let's do this commercial upholstery material. I wish you were here in the workshop and you could feel this with your fingers. This stuff, this stuff is absolutely crazy. It's used for covering couches, davenports, anything that's going to have a high level of use, a high level of traffic on it. And it's got like a sticky back on it as well. So this stuff is just nasty, nasty to sew with. I probably should just throw it all away, but it's so much fun to challenge machines with it, isn't it? I love to challenge machines with sew-offs like this because it really puts that machine to a genuine test, not window dressing like some people will do on their YouTube channels where they sew like a light cotton or something like that, and they consider that done. We sew a wide field of materials with a sewing machine so that that owner has confidence that whatever they choose to make their bags out of, other than maybe the Naugahyde stuff, I mean, their machine's going to be able to handle it really, really easily. So we're going to probably do, just like we did with the denim, we're going to do 6 layers of this. And this is way too big of a piece to do 6 layers, unless I have like a huge wide thing. So let me cut it down real quick. I'll cut it down just a little bit. Listen to those scissors work. And it's not because we're going through 2 layers or whatever. That stuff is just tough. That stuff is really tough. So here we go. We've got 2 layers. We're going to fold it in the middle, get us up to 4 layers. And then finally, we're going to fold it one more time and get us all the way up to 6 layers. This is a little bit insane. I know some people with light industrial machines. I recently showed you that Eagle light industrial machine. There are some people that would be reluctant to sew at this level with a light industrial machine. We're doing it with a 301 from 1952. Look at that thickness. I'm going to pinch it together even to show you, so I'm not exaggerating its thickness. That's its thickness right there. 6 layers of commercial, I'm saying it again, commercial upholstery material. Let's see how this 301 can manage this. You know what? Let's see if I can get underneath the presser foot because I have no hyperextension. Unbelievable. Let me move my hand out of the way. Look at this. We still have room, and this is 6 layers of commercial upholstery material. 6 layers. Unbelievable. Now, ideally, you would want to sew this thickness, this many layers. You'd want to sew it with a roller or a walking foot. That would be the ideal situation. We're using a standard presser foot attachment. That's a lot of thickness for that much. Matter of fact, let me turn it towards the camera the other way so you can see it even more clearly, what we're going through. Can you see that from the, let me get closer. Folks, that's a crazy sew off. Even for one of my machines that comes out of the workshop, that's not a walk in the park. 6 layers of commercial upholstery material. Let's give it a go. And I am going to, again, to prove the point, I'm going to back the camera up and show you that we're going to do this without a hand start. There we go. So I'm not going to be turning the wheel and giving it a boost. We're going to go with the sheer grit and the power of Marie Madson's 301. I'm just going to get that take-up arm all the way up. Right now, we're not all the way at the top. Get that all the way up. See, I'm going up, 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 right here. Up, 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 up. Now I'm almost reaching the pinnacle. I'm right at the peak. Right at the peak. And I'm going to go just a little bit further where it's getting ready to do that downstroke. A little bit further, a little bit further. Now we're at the downstroke. Right there. Right there, the take-up arm is getting ready to come back down with the full force of that 0.54 amp direct drive motor. So now we're in the perfect position to try to tackle a sew-off like this. Perfect position. All right, keep your fingers crossed. And again, I'm all the way out here so you can see I'm not going to give this a boost. It's all the machine. It's all the machine. So if any of you have ever been smack talking or bad talking 301s and saying that they're a lightweight sewing machine, look at what we've already sewn. Genuine elk hide, saddle grade leather, 6 layers of denim. Now we're going to be doing 6 layers of commercial upholstery material. We might get a little stubby factor because we don't have the ideal presser foot attachment on there, but we're still going to get through it. All right, here we go. No hand start. Let's go. Get her done. That was it? That was it? Really? We're done already? It was that easy? Come on. No way. And the stitches are gorgeous. And this is not as slippery as that Naugahyde. So we actually have beautiful stitch integrity and stitch definition. Let's look at these close up. And again, we're not using our standard Schmetz universal needle, my go-to needle. We're using this Husqvarna needle that my friend Emma sent me from Florida. Very grateful, very thoughtful. But, you know, it's kind of like driving your favorite car or making your favorite recipe. Someone makes it different. It's just not your recipe. And my recipe for success has always been a Schmetz universal needle. Now, let me show you again before we even look at the stitching, what we just went through. 6 layers of commercial grade upholstery material. This is the thick of thick. This stuff is hardcore. I mean, you could have a 2-year-old running their butt over it all day long and you couldn't wear this stuff out. And we just went through 6 layers of it, as you saw, without a hand start, just the sheer grit of Marie's machine. So let's grab that stitch off display thing and we'll take a look at this close up. Absolutely amazing. The 301 is just a fabulous machine. If you don't own one after this live stream, you're probably going to want to go find one. So there's our totality of the stitching. Again, 6 layers of commercial upholstery material. Now let's get close. Let's get real close. Come on, camera. Folks, those are absolutely page 34 stitching. And there's no distortion. There's no compression of the stitch. We've got a nice full stitch on 6 layers of commercial upholstery material. And we did it with a standard presser foot attachment. That just blows my mind. Look at the thickness from the side again of what we went through. You know, other people will post still shots with supposed sew-offs that their machine has done. We do it the right way. We do it live on a live stream like this. You actually see it happening. Unbelievable. That material messes with my eyes. Does that mess with your eyes at all? The busyness of that pattern backdrop on that material? I mean, that's why I get like an inch away from it with the camera so you can see it. But yeah, that stuff just makes my eyes go buggy. Beautiful stitching. Let's turn it over and look at that lock stitch. Again, the lock stitch is always more challenging for the machine to accomplish. You can really see the thickness from the top there. Look at that. No hand start. If you joined the live stream late, we just sewed through 6 layers of commercial upholstery material with Marie Madson's 301 from 1952. No hand start. No hand start. Unbelievable. Let's get real close to it and take a look at this. See, even the camera has trouble focusing on it. It's like, what do I focus on? Because that material is just goofy. Beautiful stitching. I'm kind of holding my breath so I don't jiggle the camera. Folks, if you think that that's easy, if you have a 301, if you have a 301 and you want, I'm dropping it. If you have a 301 and you want to write me a note, or you can text me. The leader, one of the leaders, can go ahead and post what my cell phone number is in the chat if they want to do that. And you want to take a you want to take a try at this with your 301. I totally welcome it, because what Marie's machine is making look super easy. I'm going to put that vertical too. I like them vertical sometimes. What Marie's machine is making look super easy is anything but super easy. That's just insane. That's insane. 6 layers of commercial upholstery material, no hand start, and this 301 went through it just like a hiccup. Yeah, the poor camera's looking at this and going, seriously, what do I focus on? What do you want me to focus on? But that's gorgeous stitching, folks. Look at that. Absolutely insane. Gorgeous stitching. Unbelievable. Back in the pile. Back in the pile. All right. We're going to wrap this up, but I'll let I'll let I'll let the camera not tip over. I'll let the owner pick the final sew off. We've got crushed velvet, which is going to be a tricky sew off. It's going to be real slippery like that Naga hide. We've got compressed felt. We've got this really cool vinyl paper. And then we've got, you know what? You know what? Let me backtrack. Let me backtrack. And I'm glad that Marie just wrote not picking. Because you know what? We need to wrap this up with a fun final sew off. Our fun final sew off will be my go-to, the 1812 Overture, sewing through anything but a light sew off. This is protected full grain leather, and we're going to buzz around in a circle. We're going to buzz around in a circle, and just give you a chance to see this machine just dance. So let's do some dancing. All right, let me get this in position. I hope I didn't bite off more than I can chew as far as the size of this. I think I can turn this. Yeah, pretty sure I can turn it. And I'll stay back right about here so you can see it more easily. All right, let me find the 1812 Overture and we'll wrap this live stream up. We're going to wrap this live stream up. 1812 Overture, 1812. I just love this song. This song is so much fun. It runs 4 minutes and 7 seconds. 4 minutes and 7 seconds. Now, I am not going to be sewing for the entire 4 minutes and 7 seconds. I'm going to grab a drink real quick as it's starting up, and then I'm going to launch into it, especially as we reach the climax of the song and you've got the cannons going off and all that, and I'll be buzzing around just zippity doo dah all over the place. And we'll give our final test to this. Where is it? We'll give our final test to this universal Husqvarna. I don't have it. Wait a second. There it is. We'll give our final test to this Husqvarna universal needle. Again, I'm really grateful for these, but I'm going to go back to my Schmetz just because, you know what? I'm going to go back to my Schmetz. So I might send these home. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Emma, thank you for the gift. I love you. Thank you so much. But I'm going to give these as a special gift to Marie to take home and to try these on some of her bag making. And there's different sizes too. You can see across the bottom. They're all not all size 90. They're size 70, 80. So she can give it a go or do other sewing with them and just see what she thinks. So I'm kind of re-gifting this. And hopefully Emma doesn't mind. That way I've got no excuse at all for not going back to Schmetz right away. Oh, what a plan. What a plan. All right, 1812 Overture. Here we go. Rock and roll, baby. Rock and roll. It's soft in the beginning, so you may not be able to hear it real loud. Let me grab a drink real quick and we'll wrap this up. Yes. Ha-ha! Oh, yeah. Yep, it's me. All right. All right. You've done beautiful, young lady. Let's finish it up now. Let's finish it up. Ha ha! All right, let's start showing. Here we go. All right, quick clip on these threads. This again is protected full grain leather, folks. Let me stop there and get us closer. Ha ha! Yes! All right, now let's go the other way. All right, the song's gonna get really cool here. Check out this song now. Get ready for it. Get ready for it. Here comes the big part. Yes. Oh, I'm not gonna stop yet. Ha ha! If you don't think, you know why kids love to run in a circle? Do you know why kids love to run in a circle? Because it's fun. And that's why it's fun to sew in a circle sometimes. Just totally aimlessly sew in a circle for fun. It's just fun. Yeah, it is. All right. Well, thanks to everybody, especially the Marie Madson, the owner from Iola, Wisconsin, giving me the opportunity to showcase her big sister to the featherweight and have a lot of fun doing it. We did this obviously just now. That's almost frameable. If someone wants this, I'll mail it to you. You know what? No, I can't. I can't mail it. Forget that. Forget that. I'm going to give it to the owner. I'm going to give this to Marie. So there's our top stitch and there's our lock stitch. Absolutely incredible. This again is protected full grain leather, so you got to really stretch it back and get close to see that stitching. Quite amazing. Quite amazing. Beautiful, beautiful stitching. So we did this at the end just for fun. Now it's not going to stand up. We did this at the end just for fun. And we did all these others on this live stream as well. I'll kind of go down them a little bit. We did the 6 layers of commercial upholstery material. We did the 2 layers of bubblegum material, which is absolutely not easy. We did the 6 layers of genuine heavy duty denim. You know what I'm saying? This is denim, 6 layers of it. We did this awful Naugahyde stuff. Yeah, I should just throw it in the garbage. But you know what? We did it anyway. We did this real thick layer of genuine elk hide and laid down absolutely breathtaking stitching on this leather. A non-leather needle too, and not a Schmetz needle, by the way. Then we did these 2 layers of saddle grade leather as well. Beautiful stitching on this also. Beautiful, beautiful stitching. That was really a long piece. I didn't remember it was quite that long. And then I did these off camera. I'm just going to show them to you, but I did these off camera. Well, there. So this is a genuine testing of the machine. And it's fun too, isn't it? It's fun to be able to do this, to see that where people are broadcasting in different places, that a 301A or a 301 is a light sewing machine, not capable of doing some crazy heavy duty sewing. Here we were buzzing around like a banshee, going through protected full grain leather and laying down stitching that's just off the charts, and then all these others to boot. So I'm impressed with Marie's machine, and I'm guessing many of you now, if you don't already own a 301 or a 301A, you're going to give it serious consideration, because you're like, oh my goodness gravy, that machine can sew, and not only sew, but it can get it done and make it look ridiculously easy. There wasn't a single sew off that we did, and we did some hardcore sew offs. This 301 just was stopped in its track, like, I can't do that. This girl said, man, oh man, I am going to make it happen. So y'all have a great rest of your evening. I know it's quite late. Thank you, especially to folks that are in later time zones. It's already after 10 o'clock your time. Thank you to the owner again, Marie Madson, for giving me the opportunity to prepare this fabulous 301 for her. And y'all wrap up your conversations. I'm going to let another song play so you can have a little bit of time to chat or do whatever. And I'll show you Marie's machine a little bit more as well. And I'll move these sew-offs to the side. And y'all have a great evening. Thanks so much. God bless you. All right. What kind of music should I pick as a closing song? Now, that runs 16 minutes. That's too long. How long does that run? Minutes and 21 seconds. That's about right. Let's do that one. Yeah, it's kind of a groovy tune, isn't it? Oh, you go all the way to the top, you're in reverse. Move this all the way to the top, reverse. Yes, yes. It's an easy machine to use. Nicely tucked away, isn't that sweet? Yeah. to play on it. All right, have a good night, everybody. God bless. Good night, Christina in Brazil, and good night to everyone else. Thank you so much for attending these great live streams. God bless.